I see. Well, hello, Chaps and Chaps. It's Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we are now discussing here the rather interesting cut, scrapped, or otherwise forgotten characters for Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS.
Forgotten characters? So these are characters, well, not so forgotten so much, but perhaps should have been there and never were.
That's right, characters who were perhaps planned, considered on the drawing board, but never actually made it into the game.
That's very interesting. So, shall we have a look at them?
Yes.
Now, apparently now, there was a great possibility that Chrom could have indeed been a planned fighter.
Chrom, you'll say? That's very
Indeed.
interesting. Now, of course, Chrom is the blue-haired swordsman, or lord, from Fire Emblem Awakening on Nintendo 3DS. We saw him in the reveal trailer for Lucina and Robin and Captain Falcon, but he never actually made it into the game, did he?
No, he didn't. Now, apparently, Mr. Sakurai had a moveset actually planned out for him.
Really?
Apparently this is the case, but in the end it was Robin who was the one that was chosen.
I see, and of course many people have perhaps realised that this is because Chrom is a swordsman, just like we have Marth a swordsman, Ike a swordsman, now Lucina a swordsman, and perhaps there just wasn't enough room for another Fire Emblem swordsman in the game.
Well, they chose Robin, didn't they?
Well, I mean, he's got a book too as well, old chap, you'll see.
He's got a book,
I think perhaps if Chrom was like Hector and he had an axe perhaps, he might have made it into the game, but that falchion sword of his, it's just no good for Smash, it seems.
So did they do anything else with Chrom? I mean, did he appear in any other way?
Well, yes, of course, he's part of Robin's final Smash, as you know. He
Right.
appears to rough up the opponent in that final Smash, but you can't actually choose Chrom to play as him, although interestingly recently we did see the Chrom Me outfit released. So perhaps Nintendo are toying with the idea of one day bringing Chrom into Super Smash Bros., but we'll have to wait and see whether that's true or not, old chap.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, yes indeed. I mean, people had spoken about it before the game came out. They were considering and talking, I wonder if Chrom should be, etc. And it looks as though they did perhaps plan him, but never came off.
Why not just put Chrom in the game and give him his lance, old chap? That's what I say, but I suppose you couldn't really do that, though. But anyway, Chrom Varials. Now, of course, the next possible character who may have been scrapped was a character from Rhythm Heaven. That's a Japanese game, you know.
Well, I think it is some form of, yes, as you say, Japanese game, Rhythm Heaven.
Rhythm Heaven.
Character.
That's
now,
right.
Who?
The character in question is, of course, or are, of course, the Chorus Men, or the Chorus Kids.
Well, now, aren't they sort of little squat, sort of blobby white things?
White sort of men, that's right.
Yeah,
apparently
white men.
Something to do with this rhythm game. Now, of course, we haven't actually seen a release of that game over here yet, I believe. It's a quite an obscure Japanese title, which is perhaps one of the reasons why the Chorus Men didn't make it into Smash.
Well, perhaps yes, indeed, because perhaps it's popular over in Japan and they like it over there, and they thought, well, Wii U is going to be, or the Smash Bros. Wii U is going to be worldwide,
yes.
And a lot of the chaps out there outside Japan won't know who they are.
That's right. There was a lot of rumour and speculation about the Chorus Men at one point. People thought they were definitely going to be in the game, but it turned out to be a load of old rubbish. Now, if I'm not entirely mistaken, I'm not 100% on this point, but I think there may be a trophy of the Chorus Men in Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS,
really?
But certainly you can't play as them as a fighter in the game.
Interesting. Most certainly. I think if we'd seen them in there, a lot of people would have scratched their heads and said, well, who are these?
Well, indeed, that's right. Certainly, it would have caused a lot of confusion among the fans because, of course, you've got quite obscure Japanese games that are only really known over there.
Well, most certainly, yes, indeed. Now, let's move on to another one.
Yes.
A hidden character, if you like, or possibility, or never surfaced.
A scrapped one.
Yes, whatever you want to call it. Now, apparently, the Rock Pikmin may have been in Alf's moveset.
Alf's moveset?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so who exactly is Alf? He is, of course, currently a palette swap of Olimar. That's right, the Pikmin fellow. Now, of course, I think Alf is one of the heroes that appears in the later game of the series, and you can play as Alf, but he's exactly the same as Olimar right now.
Well, that's rather interesting. So what do we have more about this then?
Well, apparently, at one stage, it was considered that Alf's Pikmin could have included the Rock Pikmin, who would have had higher attack power but shorter reach. But of course, because as I said, he's just a palette swap now, that's not the case, and he uses exactly the same attacks as Olimar.
I see. So when we say Rock Pikmin being in it, then he wasn't really going to play as a character as such. but one of Elf's sort of moves.
One of his, well, I suppose so. I mean, really, the Pikmin are basically, they are the whole moveset, if you will, more or less, of Olimar and Alf. Without the Pikmin, there's not an awful lot he can do, you see.
That's true.
So I think, realistically speaking, yes, the Rock Pikmin would have really changed the way Alf played, although, of course, you couldn't play as the Rock Pikmin themselves directly.
Most certainly. So I wonder why they were going to bring him in then.
It's quite interesting. I think,
why did they consider it, do you think?
Well, one thing's for sure, if they had made it into his moveset, he would be a separate character now today, instead of just a palette swap, because of course Mr. Sakurai has said in the past that any character that has even a slight difference is given their own slot, whereas just, costume changes are on the same character under the costume change function.
Right, okay, so the story with this one is that he may have been in Elf's moveset, and that's why perhaps he could have been some form of hidden character.
Oh, they rather, yes, the Rock Pikmin. Indeed. Moving on then, Fiddles, from the Rock Pikmin, we have another Japanese character here, if you will believe that, being, of course, Takamaru, the swordsman from the game The Mysterious Murusame Castle.
Ah, so Takamaru. Now, this is a Japanese game, is it? The Mysterious Murusame Castle.
That's right, originally a Japan-only release, and it was so for many years on the original Famicom, or NES over there. That was quite a fast-paced action game viewed from the top down with samurai, ninja, castles, and a generally Japanese setting. Now, of course...
Right, so hang on, just yes. Said that. We were talking about another sword swiper here.
Ah, indeed, that's right, he is another swordsman. That's right, of course we do know that he is currently in the game as an assist trophy, is he not?
Is he really?
He most certainly is, and of course he'll do things like throw shuriken at you and all whatnot, but apparently the reason why Takamaru never made it in as a playable swordsman character was because he wasn't really known outside of Japan.
Very interesting, so there you have it. I mean, they're in there, obviously when they're creating these characters in the games, etc.
Yes.
There's a lot of ideas, and about characters perhaps we don't really know over here.
Yes.
Let's put this one in and that one in, and then they realise, they won't know who they are.
That's right.
So they drop them as a sort of support character or whatever.
Indeed, although it's Nintendo's all-star fighting game, of course they have to be very careful to make sure they only choose their stars that are known worldwide, otherwise they might waste their time putting a fighter in the game that's just not going to be used, and worse still, people are going to say, well, who's this?
Well, that's true, yes, of course, but it's very interesting nevertheless to learn about these characters that were actually there and what they did actually consider.
That's right, so far we've had Chrom, the Chorus Men, the Rock Pikmin and Takamaru. Now up next is a famous one, I understand, old chap.
Most certainly, yes, indeed. Now, this is the Ice Climbers.
The Ice Climbers?
Yes, indeed. Now, they were scrapped due to performance considerations on the 3DS.
Were they now? Indeed, that's right. Apparently, Mr. Sakurai said, well, I'm sorry, chaps, but the 3DS just can't handle these Ice Climbers.
Well, hang on a minute. So, what are the Ice Climbers, or who are they?
Well, of course, they have appeared in both Super Smash Bros. On the GameCube and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. They, of course, originated in their series Ice Climber, and they had to, well, climb the mountain, I suppose, old chap.
I see. So that's what I mean. The origins, though, did they have any outside origins other than Smash Brothers?
Back on the NES, that's right, old boy. In the older, back in the 80s or sometime. Goodness me, so many years ago.
My word, the 80s.
Those sorts of times, certainly, old chap. And they are, of course, two squat characters who wear these, these puffy sort of Eskimo clothing outfits, old chap, if you will. And they have hammers as well.
Oh, hammers. So they were sort of bringing back a retro character there and thinking about putting them in.
Well, of course, they've already appeared, you see, in two Smash Brothers games, and they were quite popular as well. Many chaps out there did enjoy playing as the Ice Climbers because, of course, they're quite unique because you control two characters at the same time, both Nana and Popo.
Yes, indeed. I was sort of saying putting them in the Wii U version.
Well, indeed. It's just a shame they did not make the cut this time. I think perhaps another reason why they were cut from the latest Smash Brothers videos. Yeah. Can you imagine an 8-man Smash with 8 Ice Climbers? That would be 16 characters on the screen at the same time.
Yes, I'm just thinking. Yes, if you did that, you'd have 16.
Can the Wii U handle that?
Well, exactly. That's a very good point. Perhaps they didn't even think or get to thinking that far.
Well,
but yes, indeed, it's a good point. Could it handle it? But we're just saying that they were scrapped due to performance considerations on the 3DS.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just thinking. I mean, does the 3DS have any characters that the Wii U version doesn't, or the other way around?
No, of course. They're both exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Yes.
And I think that's one of the goals of the design team, to keep the characters the same across platforms. And perhaps Mr. Sakurai said, well, we can't have the Ice Climbers on just the Wii U, otherwise the 3DS owners are going to get upset. yet.
Exactly, so there we are. Other little chaps that were in the pipeline there but didn't ever really surface.
That's right, and if you believe this, fellows, it's true, and I suppose a bit more believable now, apparently some Tekken fighters were considered as a representative for Namco.
My, what, Tekken fighters? Well,
Tekken.
I suppose you can understand it because Tekken is a fighting game and very popular, been around for years and years and years.
Of course, we already have Ryu from Street Fighter in the game now, so this seems quite a bit more believable, but apparently the fighters like, I can't even say his name away, is it Hihechi? I don't know. But anyway, that chap with the funny hair, you know the one.
Yes.
He and his friends were apparently dropped because bringing their moves over to Super Smash Bros. Would have been too difficult.
Ah, interesting. So apparently then they can handle Ryo's moves, but not these chaps' moves. I wonder why.
Well, I mean, Tekken, I suppose, is quite different from Super Smash Bros., but when you think about it, old boy, Street Fighter is very different too.
Well, yes, it certainly is, yes, indeed. Maybe there were some other reasons as well as that why they didn't want to bring them in.
But all the same, fellows, we certainly do know they're not currently in the game as playable fighters, although, of course, you do have, I believe, Mii costumes for them, so there's that to consider.
Well, there is indeed, and whether they may appear in the future as, I don't know, DLC perhaps, who knows?
Yes, indeed, Vales. So there you are. Do tell us what you think of these scrapped characters here, Vales. Chrom, the Rhythm Heaven Chorus Men, the Pikmin of the Rock, the Takamaru Chap, Ice Climbers, and of course the Tekken Fighters. My word, so many scrapped and forgotten chaps there. Will they appear in the future? Who can say?
Who can say? Who can know? We don't know.
But I can say this has indeed been Game Chap and Buddy bringing you a rather exciting round of Super Smash Bros. News and updates. Thank you for this kind of job, as I say. I'm going to call this thing once more the next exciting outing, my word. Until then.